All right, folks, welcome back to Lakers Latest. We're going to talk all things Lakers today. Not a crazy amount going on rumors-wise, but they come and go. We'll hear more as the weeks come on, as the months come on. Hopefully, we'll see that big trade that we've all been hoping for, but time will tell. And again, we're coming back to you from Studio City, 84 and sunny today. It's a toasty one. Definitely hotter in the past few days in LA, but that's just a typical LA summer, so we are here for it. Let's hop right into it, and let's get started. So, first thing we have on the docket today is the Lakers starting lineup. So, what is the Lakers starting lineup going to look like as currently constituted? Now, again, kind of went over the past couple days of guys that, Wiggins, guys that they could potentially look to improve the roster, to make the roster better, to kind of fill that big hole that they currently have. But as currently constituted, I'm just going to be more of an exercise, assuming that nothing more major happens, which we hope it does, but assuming nothing more major happens, I just want to look at what a prospective potential starting lineup could look like on opening day. So first of all, I got two lineups to me that it would most likely be one or the other. The first one would be pretty much the lineup we saw last year: Luka, Reaves, Rui, LeBron, Ayton. Obviously, Ayton wasn't here last year, so that's going to be definitely a different dynamic offensively that he's going to bring to the table. We discussed it a few days ago. Obviously, a low post player of his talent, the caliber that he brings to the table, that's definitely going to change the offense a little bit that we've seen. And then obviously another year for Reaves for him to take the next step. We know how great Luka is, except this time Luka would be getting that entire offseason to, get in touch with everything, get used to it, be here from the beginning, not be thrown into it off what is probably the wildest trade in NBA history. So to me, that is probably most likely going to be the starting lineup. Obviously, with that lineup, there brings a ton of offense. I mean, Luka, LeBron, Rui, like there is so much offensive potential with that team. I think specifically that starting lineup, the concern is defense. And that leads me into the next potential starting lineup, which would be Luka, Marcus Smart, Rui, LeBron, Ayton. Now, I find it hard to believe that Reaves would come off the bench because especially he was so good last year, career year, especially like his last like 10 games, 25 a game. I mean, he was unbelievable. But, and this is a big but, we saw in that Timberwolves series, they were just anytime whoever Reaves was guarding, they just gave him the ball and said go to work. Like that was a huge problem in that series. Reaves is a really talented offensive player, but he's just not that good of a defender. He gives you effort and you appreciate that, but when push comes to shove in those big moments, you need a guy like Marcus Smart. So I don't necessarily know if Marcus Smart has to start. I think he definitely needs to close because he needs to be in those big moments guarding those big players. But I think the one with Smart is probably a little bit more balanced, especially because you look at Luka and LeBron, two guys that really need the ball in their hands a lot. Then you have Reaves, but you don't want really Reaves to be just that shooter. You want him to be able to have the ball in his hands too. So you could conceivably think if he is the sixth man, he immediately becomes the top contender for sixth man of the year. You immediately on that bench you have someone that's comfortable going right in it, who can score, who can distribute, who can do all those things. So I think it's going to be one of those two starting lineups for sure. I think if I had to lean towards one, it would probably be the one with Smart starting, but I also have no problem with starting Reaves. I think Smart just has to play a lot in that fourth quarter in the game's biggest moments. But right now, as it's currently constituted, it's definitely going to be one of those two starting lineups. Which leads me into next topic, JJ Redick year two. Now, obviously, last year was kind of an up and down year. They were hot, they were cold. They really kind of picked it up near the end of the season. And overall, I think, especially in the regular season, you would say that JJ Redick did a pretty good job. I think he got a lot out of the guys. We had career years from Reaves. Rui played really well. Obviously, LeBron was still playing 35 minutes a game, which I touched upon. I expect that to lessen 2 to 3 minutes at least. But overall, I think JJ Redick's first year was good. Obviously, it ended in very big disappointment losing to the Timberwolves, which is nothing to sneeze. I mean, the Timberwolves are a very good team. I don't think losing to them is anything to be ashamed about. I think losing in 5 games when you had home court advantage that's not what you expect from the franchise that is the Los Angeles Lakers, and especially a team that was really good in the regular season. Now, I do think some of that was definitely attributed to the fact that you look at the Timberwolves, they played together the entire year. I mean, the Lakers, like Luka was thrown into the mix. Obviously, you're happy to get a stud like Luka, but that's one of the craziest trades in NBA history, and it's something that you really weren't anticipating. So they were really adjusting for months after that trade. Whereas now, Luka's going to have that full second year. JJ's going to have an entire offseason to work with him, to get comfortable with him, to build around him, to kind of put him in the spots that he wants him to be. And I think that you're going to see a more comfortable Luka. I think you'll see LeBron's minutes lessened. And I think it's very important that JJ gets the most out of DeAndre Ayton. I think Ayton has a chance to be a really solid contributor to this team, but I touched on it before. You have to get a motivated Ayton. You have to get a guy who's going to be willing to come in, do the hard work, do everything that's asked of him, not complain about not getting the ball too much, or excuse me, not too much, enough. And then obviously defensively, you just want to give him that effort. We know he's not going to be elite, but I think JJ really, I think that's one of the most important things in JJ Redick's year two. He has to get the most out of DeAndre Ayton, both offensively and especially defensively. And I think that's something that we can expect. He obviously has a good relationship with his players. You saw Reaves take that next step last year. I think it's important that JJ gets, you want to see guys to continue to improve, but I think get Luka comfortable so, he's really fully integrated. And then definitely JJ getting the most out of Ayton is one of the most important things I think we will follow as the season goes along. Because if the Lakers are going to go anywhere, they need the absolute best out of DeAndre Ayton. They kind of fell in their lap. Obviously, he's had some things go on, but I think that's going to be a huge key to JJ Redick's year two, is that development, or not the development, but just DeAndre Ayton getting the most out of him. So leads me into, kind of touched on this very few minutes ago, but just Austin Reaves, year three. Obviously, Austin Reaves, for the most part, has been a revelation. Undrafted free agents come in. He's developed from, a bench guy to a legitimate, I don't want to go as far to say he's a star, but maybe just a notch under that, a really, really good player, a guy who maybe if he was on a team with a little bit more opportunity, maybe he would potentially be a borderline all-star, but you've seen progression every year in Reaves' career. Obviously, it was like maybe 5 points, 10 points, it was 15, and then last year, 20.2 points, 3.7 rebounds, 5.8 assists, which almost 6 assists a game, so he's distributing. 46% from the field, 37% from three. Like, you saw big strides in Austin Reaves' game. And I think now the question is, defensively, and I just touched on this, he got pummeled by the Timberwolves. And I don't think that's anything that's going to change anytime soon. He's not a great defender. He's not just going to miraculously come into this year being first team All NBA defense, win Defensive Player of the Year. Like, that's not going to happen. But there's ways to mitigate his defense. And I think especially after they saw what happened in that Timberwolves series, they need to find ways to make sure he's not getting put on, the best guys, and he's not consistently getting attacked on the defensive end. So defensively, you just want to see consistent effort from him. Keep giving your effort. We know you're not the greatest defender, but all you can ask is give effort, hopefully be somewhat close to average, and that will be good. Offensively, I think it'll be very interesting because the question is, what's his role going to be? We just touched upon starting lineup. Is he going to be in that starting lineup? Is he going to be a guy that is going to get a lot of catch and shoot opportunities? Is he going to have the ball in his hands a lot? Or is he going to be that sixth man? Are they going to be like, we want Marcus Smart in there to defend the guy's best player, and we want Austin Reaves to be that guy that power off the bench, comes off the bench, scores 17 to 21 points. Like I said, if he comes off the bench, he would immediately be the top six-man candidate in the NBA, probably the leading guy to win Six-Man of the Year award. And that's a decision that they have to make, and that's one that I assume they'll tinker with in preseason, in training camps, and to JJ, where JJ can say, okay, do I want this super powerful offense with Reaves and LeBron and Rui and Luka and Ayton, or do I want to try and balance it out more with Smart? So for Reaves, I think it is going to be role-based. I think if he is in that starting lineup, how is he going to adjust to a full year of Luka? How is he going to adjust to maybe Ayton getting more touches? How many touches is he going to get? Is he going to be strictly a catch-and-shoot guy? Is he still going to have that chance to keep, distributing and keep playing pick and roll and have the ball in his hands? Because if he comes off the bench, like, he's going to be the leader of the bench. Like, obviously, of course, he's still going to play with the starters. But when he comes off that bench, like, that's, like, his team. That's his unit. Sorry, not his team, obviously. He's not the face of the Lakers. But that's his second unit. Like, he's running that second unit. You're giving him the keys to the castle in running that second unit. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens, whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench. But he's developed. One thing we know about Austin Reaves is he's gotten better every single year. He's put in the work, he's developed, and he's improved his game every single year that he's come into the NBA. Every offseason he's gotten better, and I expect that to continue. We'll see how he does defensively. Again, not the greatest defender, but all you can ask for is the effort. And I think we're going to see a good year from Austin Reaves. We will wait to see whether he starts or comes off the bench. I will say, if they get a guy like Wiggins, then I think he will come off the bench. But again, that remains to be seen. We'll hold judgment until something like that happens. All right, we're going to finish it off. Obviously, the Lakers are probably arguably the most historic franchise in the NBA. Outside of, I can't think of any possible franchises. There's no franchise in like Boston or anything that comes close. I think that franchise is pretty embarrassing, actually. No, I'm just kidding. The Lakers obviously are historically one of, and not just the NBA, all professional sports, one of the premier franchise in the NBA. So obviously, the list of Laker legends is, I mean, I could talk about this forever, but just tried to narrow it down to a top 5. So I got my top 5. Let me start off with my honorable mentions. And keep in mind, when I have these top 5 Lakers, it takes into account obviously their talent level, but also their accomplishment with the Lakers. I want to specify that because the first guy I have on my honorable mentions list is Wilt Chamberlain, who, if we were doing this just by talent, would probably be the number 1 Laker, the most talented Laker of all time. But it's also about accomplishments. He's won championship there. Obviously, unbelievable player. One of the most talented players in professional sports history, not just NBA. But yeah, he still just missed it. That's an honorable mention. Elgin Baylor, Laker legend. Obviously, in the 80s, he was, excuse me, not the 80s, just mixed up my guys. In the 60s, he was obviously a legend as well. Incredible. In the Lakers, in those old teams, Elgin was there, and every single one of them, he was just unbelievable. So he still is in that honorable mention, though. And the last one, George Mikan. No disrespect to him, but I just got to keep it more closer to this century. But obviously, George Mikan is a Laker legend. The 50s, he was on the very beginning Laker teams. Nothing but respect to an absolute Lakers legend, but I'm sorry you are still in the honorable mentions list. So now, here we go. It's coming with number 5, Shaquille O'Neal. Obviously, Shaq, in his time here, just absurdly dominant, especially, on their way to winning back-to-back-to-back championships, finals MVP, and one of the most dominant final stretches we've ever seen. One of the most fun, loving, charismatic players you'll ever see. Obviously, he also can be frustrating at times, which is part of the reason that led to him being traded out of Los Angeles. But still, between the accomplishments, the talent, and everything he did, he's absolutely up there. He's number 5 for me. Number 4, again, if you were strictly talking about talent, this guy would probably be number 1 or number 2. This is Kareem. Kareem, obviously a Lakers legend, played with Magic, had the runs in the 80s, multiple championships. Now, obviously, when Kareem came here, he was, I don't know how old he was in the first year, maybe like late 20s or early 30s, but he wasn't there at the beginning of his career, say, like some of the other guys were. But Kareem is just one of the top 3, top 4 greatest players that have ever played the game, just an absolute icon, living Laker legend. The only guy who has literally the most indefensible shot in NBA history, which was the skyhook. Just, it's not possible to defend, and that's crazy. That he created a shot that is legitimately indefensible. It's not possible to defend it. If he needs a bucket, he can do it, period. And that is always going to be a part of his legacy. But yeah, obviously, I got him at number 4. It's tough once you get to those top guys, but shout out Kareem, Lakers legend. Number 3, this might surprise some people, but I have Magic Johnson at number 3. I know people probably thought he was a lock for top 2, but there's always someone after Magic that people forget about. But, I mean, what else is there to say about Magic? Arguably the greatest passer the game's ever seen, the inventor of the Showtime Lakers, running up and down, all that. We have, obviously, his famous skyhook in the playoffs. But Magic is just, I don't know if we'll ever see someone like Magic again. LeBron's probably the closest, and I'm just talking about that from the size and passing ability. Obviously, he's a much better scorer and shooter than Magic, but Magic's just an absolute living Laker legend. I mean, for the championships, anything. Now he owns a team. He's a Los Angeles legend. So nothing but respect for Magic. I know some people might be surprised, but yeah, I got him at number 3. Number 2, I have Jerry West. Jerry West was unbelievable. Like the man averaged, I think, at 29 a game. I mean, there was one playoff run he averaged almost like 40 a game. Jerry West was just outrageous, and he, time and time again, was unbelievable. And he lost finals after finals after finals after finals after finals until he finally won. But I'm not going to hold that against him. He's going against some of the most dominant Celtic teams ever assembled. But yeah, he was just unbelievable. Also, all first team NBA defense, did anything and everything you could ask. Jerry West was incredible and does not get the amount of love that he should. Which leaves us at number 1. At this point, you know who that is. It's Kobe. Um, just an absolute living Laker legend. Sorry, not living. Rest in peace to a legend. But just an absolute legend of the game. I mean, you remember going in your backyard with your court, your basketball hoop, your Kobe. I mean, that was my childhood right there. Everything he did, the teeth, the grit, you loved every single second of it. And this is a guy that, kind of like I said, with accomplishments, he played his entire career with the Lakers. There was times where you thought he might not, but there's just nothing else to say. Kobe is the epitome of the Lakers. He is an absolute legend in every sense of the word. Top 10 player of all time easily, and just absolutely beloved all over Los Angeles. Kobe, to me, is the greatest Laker of all time. I do think there's some arguments otherwise, but I have Kobe as the greatest Laker of all time. Let me know what you guys think, but always going to love Kobe. Just always my favorite player growing up. I loved watching him play. I love the fadeaways, him pull up, winning game winners. Just an absolute legend of the game. So that's my top 5. And yeah, that's what I got for you today, guys. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. I'm out.